Well, joining us to speak more on this fractional hiring trend is Lauren Saidel-Baker, an economist with ITR Economics. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, could you just explain a bit more about what fractional hiring is and just how it differs from traditional full-time employment?
Absolutely. Fractional hiring is really an outgrowth of the gig economy, as you mentioned, in that C-suite role. So you don't hire a CEO full-time, you'll hire a CEO part-time, but they're actually an independent contractor, so not even a direct employee of this company. It's really good for startups, groups that are just too small or just don't have the resources to hire that traditional C-suite with the expertise that they need. So you might be hiring a CEO, maybe a chief marketing officer, a chief technology officer. This doesn't have to be a long-term thing. Sometimes it's just for one stage of a company's life cycle or just one project, maybe bringing one product to market where you need very specific expertise at a high level, but you don't need to commit to that individual full-time.
So, Lauren, what types of roles or industries even are most using this approach?
It's very common in the startup world. So biotech is a big one. Anything technology-based, there is a need, again, for expertise. However, we're also seeing this trend in more broad companies. Again, usually they tend on the smaller side, but there is a need for fractional hiring for just one specific project. Maybe you're entering a new market as an already large business, and this won't be a permanent position. So both sides can go into it with that temporary nature, with flexibility, more so than bringing on an individual full-time. So we are seeing a diverse array of these of sectors coming into fractional hiring, but again, startups, technology firms are the most prevalent at the moment.
Now, you've spoken to some of the benefits. What could be the downsides here?
Sure. There's always the culture downside anytime we're talking about, especially these smaller firms, especially with the new remote post-COVID world. So you have to keep in mind you are only hiring a fraction of this individual. They very likely have other time commitments. They won't be on call 24/7. They won't have that same buy-in as maybe a founder of a company would. So culture, their perceived commitment often can be a bit of a downside. In this case, it's just about finding the right individual that really fits with this company, that you can overcome some of those hurdles.
So to that point, how can fractional hires actually contribute to long-term company culture, or is their role designed to be simply tactical?
No, I think they can absolutely contribute to the culture. In many cases, these are experts in their field, and they really have the best practices from their array of experiences, this type of individual that a company might not be able to afford as a full-time hire. So they're bringing that culture from other experience, from other firms that they've worked for, other really stages of their life, and they can contribute that. It's just about creating that cohesion even across typically remote, not always remote, but typically remote environments.
Right, and to that point, we have seen more remote working roles since the pandemic. We've also been seeing a return to work from other companies. So how do you see this trend evolving over the next few years?
It's very interesting how many companies are pulling folks back into the physical office. There are upsides and there are downsides. What we're seeing more often than not is some amount of hybrid work. So the vast majority of the data that I track, it shows the number of workers who work at least one day remotely is very high, over 50%. I think most estimates have it in the 75 to 80% range. However, the full-time remote workers, that's much smaller. It's probably in the 10 to 15% range by our best estimates. So I think the numbers are somewhat inflated as we talk about the no longer needing these offices. Even if you're going in just one day a week, just one day a month, you do still need that physical location. It remains to be seen what sectors will remain fully remote. Clearly, we can do a lot of things by remote meetings, by these calls. It's becoming much more normal, but there is still some benefit to that FaceTime.